Okay, welcome to Real Estate Radio, brought to you by REMAG. And with me today, I've got Alysson Watt. Alysson is the creator, founder of the Retirement Village Summit. And it takes place on the 30th and the 31st of May in Cape Town at the Century City Conference Center. And so first of all, our guest today is Alysson. And as I mentioned, she is the creator and founder of this particular event. And I think maybe, Alysson, you must maybe share and tell us, well, why have you decided to do these 3 retirement village focused conferences?
Hi, Neil, and hello to all your listeners. Mainly, the main thing has been, my background has been mostly public health.
Right.
And when there have been a lot of changes, as we know, in public health. So I was looking for something, an event to do something that was complementary, in a complementary kind of field. And retirement villages became it because of frail care. And the main driver has been that, I don't know about everybody else, but I'd like to retire to a nice place,
Yes.
a well-run place.
Right.
And for those people who are type A people like myself, who we like to get busy, we like to fix things, tweak, do a little bit of this and that, then I need to make sure that it's okay. It's better than okay. So, and then when I started delving into this industry, I realized that there are a lot of weird, strange anomalies. Maybe, things like there are very little statistics. So you don't know how many sales there are because the deeds office doesn't differentiates sectional title from the rest of, retirement villages from the rest of the sales.
Yes.
So there are lots of bits and pieces of legislation that have been added to accommodate retirement villages, but not properly. So there are lots of things that don't really work properly. Mm-hmm. But the Department of Trade and Industry are looking at resolving that. Right. In the coming few years. So, but there's also a lot of change that is happening. And I think that I speak to people all the time, people phoning us, asking for contacts, advice, etc. And developers who have gotten advice from people, and I don't believe it's just not being the best advice, because there isn't enough knowledge out there. Mm-hmm. So people don't know how the industry is changing. The resident profile is changing. We're moving from the silent generation to the baby boomers plus Generation X, different type of requirement. Does frail care still need to be, do we still need to have frail care, or is it still in the same model? Is sectional title the right thing? Is life rights the right thing for developers, for residents, etc.?
Yeah, you're opening up quite a few can of worms here. Before you jump into that sectional title, freehold, share block, life rights, and all that kind of thing, there were some recent stats that came out from Alexander Forbes, and it said a lot of people that are going into retirement are not actually doing well in terms of their retirement goals. Only around about 20% or less are using their last salary for retirement. But maybe I think let's unpack what you opened, and because I think we'd like to get to key building blocks for retirement, and I think that's really why you're hosting this. Let's talk about the different sectional title, freehold, share block versus life rights. Do you want to maybe just unpack that a little bit?
Okay. The current sectional title model it essentially works on the premise that the residents know what's best for their village, but it doesn't take into account frail care. Right.
Okay.
When you add frail care, it changes everything.
Why?
Because it's very costly, number one. Mm-hmm. I've heard of villages losing millions every month. Mm-hmm. It's also economies of scale. If you've got a village that is 800, Helderberg, for example, mm-hmm. It's the largest village in the country. It has over 800 units. They levy $2,500. Mm-hmm. Very nice, thank you. They get 4 swimming pools, frail care, art classes, sculpture classes, you name it, they've got it. The most incredible security system I've ever seen in my life. Banks of monitors. It looks like what you see on movies at the
Right.
FBI.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looks like. Okay. No,
Right.
I'm not kidding. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So now then you look at another village who's got it's got less than 100 units, and they're struggling. Why are they struggling? Because you can't sustain a frail care. If you have frail care, you're offering frail care. And the problem is the estate agents keep on pushing and saying to the developers, you have to have frail care, you have to have frail care because that's what sells. That's what sells. No, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way to go. And when that's what the industry, that's why it's changing so much, is that not every village should have or can have a frail care.
Right.
And maybe if there is a village that is, for example, you've got 2 villages in a 5 or 10 kilometer radius, one has a frail care, the other doesn't have to. They should have an agreement. Start thinking laterally.
Yes. So, Alysson,
and then life rights depends on, sadly to say, how many people can die, the death rate, because that's actually what it boils down to.
Right.
In a nutshell.
Absolutely.
And people are living longer. So that also is going to play straight. But overall, whichever model, it doesn't matter which one, there is an overarching thing that people haven't considered, or maybe they have. And that is, people are living longer. Do they have sufficient amount of money to stay and support their lifestyle for 30, 40 years?
Right. Yes. Okay, now you've just opened up a whole can of worms here, because you've talked about this life rights and versus the sectional title freehold, because I think let's unpack that a little bit more, because as I understand it, life rights tends you have the developer that stays involved in that particular development for life, and whether things go good or bad, they're in it for the long term. You're going to pay high levies, but generally they will stay the same. There won't be special levies because they are maintaining it. However, the downside is that you obviously have to forfeit future capital growth and basically sell it for the same price you bought it for. But I think, so in this particular instance, I think what you're saying, where the frail care comes into it, life rights works better. Would you say that's quite accurate?
I think so. And especially for people, it depends on the family. At the end of the day, that's really what it boils down to. It's, do they need the state from their parents, or to be, the property portion, is it necessary? Does it form the bulk of their estate? If it does, and there's not sufficient amount of money to sustain their lifestyle, then is life rights right? But then then you look at that and you say, okay, but then what about their health? So you've got to also add in health components. So it's not an easy decision for people who are making decisions when it comes to developers saying, oh, which model am I going to? Yes, they are in it for the long haul when they go for life rights rather than sectional title. I've heard a developer say, what was it? I build them, I sell them, and I don't care what happens in them.
Right. Yeah. So that's more the sectional title sort of thinking, freehold.
You get that. Not
yes.
all.
Yes.
You do get that.
Yes.
Then you get another developer who built 6 villages who kept the frail case. Right. So he took that component and he said, no, I'll manage that.
Right.
So you get there are a lot of different within the landscape of these different models. You get variables. And I think the thing that what I'm trying to do at the conference, is to get people to understand that there are variables and to understand how it will impact them, what will work for them, what will be the best art result for them, but not only for them, but for the legacy that they're leaving, because that's actually what developers are doing. They shouldn't be, I don't believe that at the end of the day, when I've spoken to lots of them, they say, they're building something that they can actually live in, that they would put their parents in.
Right. Okay.
And isn't that what we all should be working towards?
Absolutely. No, definitely. So, so I've got to ask the question then, Alysson. I mean, you've got this conference coming up. I mean, why should people attend this? Because what are they going to get out which they're not getting from normal developers? I'm sure there's got to be a big pull there. There's a big reason. I think this is the second year you're hosting this. And so maybe to just give people some very good reasons. And who are those people that should be there? Is it only developers? Okay. Is it estate agents? Maybe elaborate a little bit on that.
It's a combination of things. A combination of people. We've developed 3 conferences to cover the life cycle of the retirement village. So the first one is Developer Summit, which is happening on the 31st. That is strictly for people who are developers, architects, town planners, etc. They're going to learn from that. From attending is looking at the different models, but not from a practical perspective from people who are running within those models. So it's not about how they think it's going to work, but how it really does work.
Right. Okay.
So that will better inform the decision that they make right at the very beginning as to which model they're going to go with.
Right.
And be realistic, because no one wants a white elephant at the end of the day. The second, and we've got people like Arthur Case, who is from Evergreen. He's going to be talking about life rights. We've got someone who runs a village in KZN, Vanessa Klusen. Then we've got someone who does training on sectional title, who's on that panel discussion. Then we're looking at what are the things about frail care, because frail care is actually the biggest stumbling block if you think about it. It's the unknown. So what we've done is I've got people who run frail cares, these different models, they're different models, and they will be sharing their experience, but also the way I've designed the conference is that there's going to be a mini workshop session afterwards where developers will be broken down into smaller groups. They'll get one of the panelists will be with them, and they will be able to attack one of the issues that come out from the panel that has been brought up by the panel, so that it's all very well listening, but it's much more, it's better learning is when you participate. You can say, okay, I've got this issue, I've got this thing in my brain, I've got, I've seen this, I've seen that, but I don't get this. Those are the things that will be answered. So your risks are reduced. You're not going to sink 20 odd million into a frail care and then have a problem, or you don't have the money to sink into a frail care.
Right. Okay. I would assume there's also going to be a lot of networking and that kind of stuff, and an opportunity to engage with all these different people.
Yes, all of the conferences have this fun component, which is speed networking, which happens at the very beginning of every summit, where it's 2 minutes, and then the other person talks for 2 minutes, and then one person moves along the way. So we do that for roughly about an hour for each session. Loads of fun, very noisy, bring loads of business cards and dish them out like, candy, really. And make sure that you have loads of them. And we've also got a great exhibition. So with people supporting, we've got Robbie and HDK Properties who are exhibiting from the developer side. And we've also got people who support retirement villages and managers, so that goes into the Managers Summit. So people like Medwell, Geratech, Capital Caterers, Feedem, who are suppliers to the industry. And the Managers Summit focuses on people who manage retirement villages. So it's the general manager, the admin, HR, and the care side, so frail care managers or nursing managers. And that deals with operational issues. This year we're dealing a lot with legislation. I don't know if people are aware, but the Older Persons Act is part of a protected class like children in this country. The Older Persons Act supersedes all legislation except the Constitution.
Okay.
And that includes any sectional title contract.
Right. Okay.
Most people are not actually aware of that. It is being amended. It'll come into effect sometime in October this year. What they're doing, they're making people more accountable.
Right.
That includes suppliers, because what has happened in the past, and this is what has led to this, there have been instances where, and unfortunately there have been quite a number of abuse, other things, but where, for example, an elderly lady with dementia was driven out by a carer with late at night. They drew as much as they could from her ATM, and they abandoned her in the middle of nowhere.
My goodness.
And security, security let her leave, but the thing is, security, there should be better training. They should be more aware. And that is because at the end of the day, the Older Persons Act is about maintaining dignity, their safety, their well-being, etc. So everything to support that. So that's why they're going to put basically teeth on the Older Persons Act.
Right. Well, then, Alysson, I think.
Can just finish with the sales and marketing
absolutely,
one?
Yes, because I want to give you the opportunity to give the push, because I think there's a lot of information you're sharing here. We do have limited time, but I think I wanted to get to the end, why the people should go, where they must book and all that kind of stuff. So if you can just end off with that, and then maybe just tell us exactly how people can go.
Sure.
Right.
They can email us, ALY at rvsummit.net or melanie@rvsummit.net, or they can go online to retirementvillagesummit.com, Retirement Village Sales and Marketing.com, retirementdevelopers.com. So we have different websites. They can go in, look at the programs, and book online if they would like to, or alternatively, they can phone us on 010-213-4005.
Okay.
The Sales and Marketing Summit is for estate agents, because there's a link between developers and estate agents, because they have to do the pre-sales. We're covering things in there about how to identify the older daughter, who is the decision maker in deciding where the folks go in a family. Also, we're going to be talking about there is a product out there that has been developed by Lombard, where a developer can pre-sell and release the funds before, so they can actually they've got income and revenue to actually build, which I think is quite unique. It has already been tested in a retirement village on the north coast in Natal, so they'll be talking about that, as well as things like customer experience. We talk about branding. We talk about how do you find people? How do you differentiate yourself? What makes you unique?
Right. Excellent.